So is this a scoop? Are we saying, Cliff, you're launching a podcast? What?
If it does, and it may, I only have the two of you to blame. So my ask of the two of you is, if this does become a podcast, can this be the first episode?
Welcome to Negotiation Warriors. I am Cliff Stein, and I am on a never-ending quest to learn what it takes to be a great negotiator. In every episode, I will sit down with some of the greatest negotiators in professional sports who will share insights, knowledge, and draw upon their real-life negotiation experiences. Negotiation Warriors is sponsored by Front Office 360, premium cap management software. To find out how we are helping college athletic programs, go to frontoffice360.com to schedule a demo.
On this first episode of Negotiation Warriors, I have a conversation with Doug Pires and Jessica DeBear on their podcast, Stopping By, sponsored by UBS. And during this conversation, we discover the origin of the Negotiation Warriors podcast. I hope you enjoy this, and thank you again for listening.
Speaking of sport, Jessica, you're going to love this. We have a repeat guest. We had so much fun talking to our guest last time. We had other questions that came up, but we weren't able to get to. So we had to have him back on, and we had to grill him a little bit. Should we talk to our real guest, Mr. Cliff Stein?
Yes.
The negotiation whisperer turned warrior. Is that fair to say?
Well, it's separate, but Negotiation Whisper is kind of the name of the business, the platform. Warrior is a subset of that. Warriors is what I teach. You guys are warriors. It's a powerful word. So there's a lot underneath that word. But yeah, Negotiation Warrior is a big part of my educational platform.
Now, how did you make? I'm curious about that. How did you make the leap from whisperer to warrior? How did you kind of delineate those two?
Okay, it's a great question. So Whisper started when I had this thought process of reflecting. When I left the Bears, there was a period of reflection, and it was that when I wasn't in the trenches and the front lines doing the negotiations, I was behind the scenes providing strategic advice, counsel, preparation, planning for high stakes, either negotiations or business decisions, working for 4 different general managers, 6 different head coaches, 2 presidents, 2 board chairmen. It struck me that there's something there in terms of what goes on behind the scenes is as valuable as being the negotiator itself. So immediately I stuck on Negotiation Whisperer. I knew it was going to be some type of advisory and consulting business. I wasn't exactly sure at that time, but I did think that negotiation teaching and training would be part of that. I didn't want to leave behind all the negotiation experience I had. So I immediately stuck on that name. Then as I started to get into what a curriculum would look like, how to teach people, how to empower people to be better, warrior is a powerful word. I said before, it's one of my favorite words in life, in that it just signifies strength, courage, bravery, overcoming adversity. You can apply it to so many different people that you know in life, whether it's someone who's overcome a significant loss, illness, loss of a job, or any type of crisis, not just the soldier who fights on our behalf, but well beyond that. And so how can I capture the essence that within all of us, I believe, is a better version of ourselves and also a better negotiator. So within all of us is a negotiation warrior. And if you're equipped with the right tools, if you're equipped with the right training, everyone is capable of being that. So Negotiation Whisperer is the teacher. Negotiation Warrior is what you aspire to be.
I like that. When I hear whisper, I think of the guy behind the guy, just leaning in, like, say this, the Cyrano de Bergerac of negotiations. And then the warrior is like, all right, I'm in the seat, in the hot seat. And I like that.
Yeah. Cliff, so your website, negotiationwhisperer.net, says that you work with college athletic departments And so tell us, how does your negotiation platform relate to your consulting work with colleges?
Yeah, so that's where when I started Negotiation Whisper LLC, it almost immediately evolved into an area of need. And that area of need was college and university athletic departments, not just football, but just all sports, were now put in a position where they were going to have to distribute their own money to athletes in the form of NIL, which they call revenue share, which emanated from the NCAA versus House settlement. So they were now going to shift to a model that looked like the professional front office to manage the cap. They were going to have some form of salary cap, manage athlete contracts, have negotiations with agents, players, and their families. And really, one of the most complex times in college sports happened when this settlement was approved. And those that were proactive reached out to people like me for help. They wanted people that had experience doing it, that negotiated contracts, that managed the salary cap, that dealt with agents, so that they could apply some version of that to how they were going to handle athlete compensation at the college level. Those are some of the services I was able to provide for colleges and universities.
You know that, Cliff, that's a really good point. We know an old football coach, and he used to have this old joke. He said, the top flight schools like in Alabama, when Saban was there, he said they don't recruit, they select. And the NIL has really made them, now they really have to recruit. They have to bring something to the table. So it's sort of opened up a whole skill set that none of these schools are prepared for. I've been following a lot of your content, a lot of the videos, the interviews. Are you just teaching classes to students, or are you offering like a group session, or how do you go about this, with kind of more from this product?
Yeah, so I knew that when I left the Bears, I felt like with all of this experience, I need to have an outlet to teach this. There was great professors at all of these schools, but very few, other than some of the adjunct professors that had the life experience that they could teach. So I wanted to build a curriculum around those life experiences, and I was contacted by opportunity to teach at Northwestern Law School and Miami Law School. So I devised a similar curriculum for both of them, the art of the player contract. And it was one that I appreciate both schools giving me the freedom and flexibility to create the curriculum that I wanted to teach. I didn't want to teach a survey sports law class that students were going to have to read case law or just general to all sports. I really wanted to be specific about all the things that go into structuring and negotiating a player contract from all sides. So taking a very holistic view of everybody's perspective in a negotiation, from the player, the agent, the front office. So you have not just the general manager, but it could be owner, president, then also on the player side, family, and other stakeholders that influence those decisions. Could be the league office in the NFL, or it could be the Players Association and the NFLPA. So we call that the player contract ecosystem. And so doing that, I realized that, yes, I have 30 years experience doing this from both sides of the table, but how much more impactful could this course be if I regularly expose the students to industry professionals that represent that ecosystem? So that's what I did. So this year, in the content that you're seeing, they got to hear from an owner. They got to hear from an assistant general manager, 3 different agents, 2 different players, a top executive at the NFL. And so to bring that to life, and not only did they hear from them, but they got to engage with them. They got to have conversations with them. I'm the moderator, but they get to ask questions and meet them. And so, yes, they'll get my stories. Yes, they'll get my perspective. But the way I learned, I realized that the way I learned and got better at what I do was because all of the people that I was exposed to, the different agents with different styles, the different executives, mentors that I worked under. And so in order to keep getting better, we have to keep bringing in these people. What were some of their secrets? What were the tactics that they used? What were the trends? So bringing them in and hearing from them. And that's the content you're seeing, the 2-minute content of these different people that have so much to offer.
I have two questions about that because number one, we get a peek into your Rolodex, and what we learned from you in your last visit with us is you have a very structured approach to kind of building a network. And so you're basically teaching anybody who's in that class how to build a network, how to ask for help. A lot of times you have, especially if you're at Northwestern and Miami Law, you're dealing with gifted kids already. So you're teaching them these lessons that are good for anything you do in life. What percentage of the people in these classes you think will actually go into the sports world versus just taking the course to learn about it and maybe apply it differently?
Yeah, that's really interesting. So when I teach at Miami Law School, they have an excellent sports entertainment and sports law program. I would say if it's not the best now, it's very close because of an individual leading the charge with a vision named Greg Levy. He's the one who got me involved. So I would say when I teach down there, there's a high percentage of the students that are very much focused on sports. In fact, they chose that law school because they want to be involved in sports law somehow. Northwestern's a little bit different. Their approach to how students enter different because they have a lot of students that had a gap year, maybe worked in another industry before. But in 2024, I ask a survey question to all the students that they send to me before the class. And I would say in 2024, less than 50% said they wanted to be an agent. And the reason I ask that question, do you want to be an agent? Because there are a lot of people, especially younger, that associate sports law with being an agent. And it's so much broader than that. So I always ask that question so I know how to teach the class. And I would say less than 50% said yes. And then usually when I get done with them, it gets lower. but again, I'm honest and say I wouldn't have gotten where I was if I wasn't an agent. But then this year, it was closer to 80%. So
Wow.
that at least they had an interest. Not that now a lot of them, are going to get huge opportunities to work in a big law firm. So you really have to take a step back financially if you want to get involved in sports. So that's where, when you're at a prestigious law school like that, they can be a little more picky. But I can say by the end of the class, which was last week, a lot of them did say, I really think I want to do this and I'd really like to explore more. And have asked for, not only have I had one-on-ones, but the great thing about being those speakers, and you talked about networking, is almost all of those speakers, if not all of them, have offered to speak to them individually. And I brought in industry experts that served as judges in the final class. I brought in a sports law attorney and one of the in-house attorneys at the White Sox to serve as judges in the negotiation competition. So there's a lot of opportunity for networking. And as we talked on the first podcast, it's all about building your network of advocates and champions.
Yeah. Jess, next time we're going to find that website where they review teachers. We're just going to read Cliff's review.
Yes.
Really? Surprise.
Yeah.
I hope so.
No.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. We'll make sure we edit the bad stuff out.
Yeah.
No, so we talk about the contract signs, playing contracts. Everyone thinks that's the exciting part. What is it that the average fan is missing when we read about these big player contracts?
Yeah, I mean, look, as we know, fans and a lot of people are fascinated by player contract signings. It's reported every day, a lot of them, at least in the NFL, by Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport. It's become commonplace. So like I ask the question, why is that the only profession where it's acceptable to report their salary? And why is there a fascination, number one? And then why has that become acceptable where we're not even questioning it? Even the agents put it out. Okay, now there are other important jobs out there. You guys have an important job. How about brain surgeon? That's an important job. Why don't we hear that Dr. Charles Teo just signed a $50 million contract to work for the Mayo Clinic? That might make me want to go there. I don't know. But like, That's my first question for you guys. Why do you think that is so fascinating, and why is it so acceptable?
I mean, that is an excellent question.
It's a good question because you're right. Like anytime they publish CEO salaries, they get maligned. They're like, oh, they shouldn't make that kind of money. But for some reason, when like an athlete gets paid, you're like, they absolutely should pay them whatever you can.
Well, all right, and the CEO salaries are when it's a public company, so you can't hide that. But you don't never hear it for a privately held company.
Right.
And I'll tell you why I think, you guys can agree or disagree. First of all, it signifies that the more you spend on a player, the more valuable he must be in terms of his ability to be successful. That's one.
Sure.
Number two, similar, is that the amount of investment that your team makes to the fan, I'm going to assume that correlates to their thinking of success. So the more my team spends, the more serious they are about winning. Really, I boil it down to those two things. They're not wrong in thinking that. It's just what's missing there is valuation and evaluation are not the same. So that meaning that the teams that spend the most, if it was that easy, teams that spend the most would win every year.
Right.
But we know that that's not happening. We know the Cleveland Browns spent the most in the last few years, and they're not winning the most. And we know that when the Patriots were winning, even though they had Tom Brady, you can argue against it, they were not spending the most. Same thing with the Kansas City Chiefs. They were spending at the bottom. Now you could say they have Patrick Mahomes, but they have Patrick Mahomes right now, and they're not winning. So when they were winning and they had success, they were not spending the most. So while it is true that you want your team to spend and you want to know if they're spending, the evaluation is so much more important. So what's missing when they read these deals is what's going on behind the scenes. If I just give you if I tell you that if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan and I tell you that we signed Dak Prescott for $60 million a year and he's now the highest paid player in NFL history, I mean, I don't know what that signifies to you, but I could ask you this question. Is he the best player in the NFL right now?
Right. It's not the case.
Probably not.
No, and he's not even the best quarterback in the NFL. He's a good player, don't get me wrong. But, and he's having a good year this year. We see that. I'm sorry, Eagles fans.
Yeah. Let's move on.
I grew up an Eagles fan. I grew up an Eagles fan.
The timing of this podcast is not great.
I'm sorry. They'll be fine. They'll be fine. But what we don't know is that behind every deal, and this is what we talk about in the class a lot, are a set of circumstances. Okay. And there are a variety of things. There are, maybe there's pressure on the team based on they have to win, the GM or the head coach's job security. Maybe there was other circumstances like supply and demand, market economics, lack of alternatives, a poor draft class either coming up or one that didn't work out in the past, and now they have to overspend to compensate for the fact that, they didn't have the right draft picks coming up. So there's a lot of things behind the scenes that determine value. And one of those things also are the negotiations itself and the people doing the negotiations. So that's where I think maybe that's not as fascinating to the average fan. They just want to know the amount and then comment on it. But even the deal itself, the structure, okay, so it's not just about the money. If I tell you that a player signed a $50 million contract, your initial reaction like, wow, especially as finance people, you're going to say, that's a lot of money. What could I do if I was investing that money for that person? Yeah. But then I might tell you, but Doug, out of that, only 10 million is guaranteed. And over the first 3 years, that player is only going to make $15 million. And then the rest of the contract isn't guaranteed. Or you know what? Out of that $50 million, $30 million is incentives that he may never earn. So when we start breaking down structure, guarantees, incentives, injury protection, it doesn't tell the full story. And so we do, in the art of the player contract, we do try to focus on how to break down a deal. Now, I'm not telling you anything that's not publicly available, meaning there are 2 websites devoted to breaking down these contracts. How they get that information and whether it's legitimate or not, I don't know, but it's accurate.
Interesting.
Spotrac.com and overthecap.com both get signings immediately.
Wow.
So again, like it leads back to my original question. Why is this okay?
Why?
Yeah.
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 And
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm going
Well,
off script. No, I have a question. Well, let me ask this question, and then I have a follow-up question.
Oh, okay.
My first question is, can anybody negotiate? Can anybody improve on their negotiation skills?
Absolutely. So negotiation is a soft skill. And this goes back to my original thesis, which is there is a better version of negotiator inside of all of us, including myself. I had to teach the class and really study it to find my own fallacies. So the first thing I did for myself, and I asked people to do, is do an assessment of yourself first. First of all, are you an introvert? Are you an extrovert? And then look at all of those qualities that you need to be a good negotiator. That's the first thing. Second thing is it's a soft skill. It's like a muscle, right? You can train it. You can make it stronger. You can make it more flexible if you do the right training, if you do the right exercises, and you're equipped with the right tools. So yes, I do. And regardless, if I have studies that were done that will show you that introverts are even better negotiators than extroverts, which to some surprising.
Really? Why?
Okay, well, the reason is that one of the things that all great negotiators have is, and you guys have it because I listened to your show, is being a great listener. And the next thing, follow up to that. And really, if you want to be a great negotiator, what I teach is either 80-20 or 70-30. Listen 70% of the time, talk 30% of the time. And the follow up to being a great listener is someone who asks great questions. You can't ask great questioners unless you're listening to what that person said. You know, like if you scripted everything that you were going to do on the show, you would come across as not a good listener because you would miss out on all the things that the person just said to you. So you already have two of the traits of a great negotiator by doing this show.
Uh-oh. Jess, be careful. All right. Be careful with me. Be gentle. All right.
Okay. My off-script question is how much does confidence play a role in being a great negotiator?
If I was going to list out like the top 10 or 12 most important things, I wouldn't use the word confidence. In fact, I'd probably use humility over it, but that doesn't mean it's not important. It is important. You have to be sure of yourself. And sometimes when you're not, and you come into a situation where you're less experienced, this is where actually the more you can instill confidence in people to believe in you, the better. And that might be how you appear, your demeanor, your energy level. All of these things are an aura emanate from your confidence level. And the lower you show that, so if you don't care about how you appear, if you don't care about your grooming, if you don't care about your demeanor and energy level, you're not going to instill confidence in people. Now, that being said, some of the greatest negotiators, they've gone full circle. They go the other way. They go, do you know Detective Peter Columbo is?
Sure.
Yeah, the old show.
Yeah, sure. Well, if you Google a picture,
we just lost all of our Gen Z listeners, probably most of our millennial listeners.
And I do it in my class too. And I show video clips of
Encyclopedia Brown, right? Is that what you're going for?
You never know where you're going to get your source of inspiration from.
That's right.
Understand. But if you Google the name Peter Columbo, you will find an image of a very disheveled looking detective, unshaven, hair messed up, in a wrinkled trench coat. Now, that was a tactic. That was part of his strategy. You never saw him coming. So was he not confident? No, he was very confident. He used that to get people's guard down. You know, I have take pictures of all the greatest agents, and I use that image too. And a lot of them will see in a t-shirt and jeans because they're so confident in themselves, they don't have to sell you anything. So I do think, though, if you're newer, especially, you want to instill confidence. And if you're prepared, look, the key to being confident in any negotiation is having great preparation. If you have great preparation,
Yeah.
you will have great situational awareness, and you won't even realize how strongly confident you come across as when you are prepared.
Yeah.
That's a
I
follow-up.
believe in that.
Is there a way, or do people utilize silence? Is there a way to utilize silence in an effective negotiation?
Yes, silence is one of the key tactics. I first learned about silence from reading Lee Steinberg's book, Winning with Integrity.
Mm-hmm.
And I read that book probably when I was an agent, was thinking about being an agent, but was even before I went to work for the Bears. And that book has stood the test of time. So anybody wants to know about negotiations from a pretty well-known, prominent agent, read Winning with Integrity. So there is a section on silence. And I actually prepared our front office when we had a negotiation with Lee Steinberg because I was conscious of the fact that he may use this tactic. Now, it's used in several ways. One is that, make me an offer. I'm going to ask you guys, make me an offer and retain me.
Cliff, we'd like to hire your services. We think you're important. We've read about you. We've seen all your content. We think you bring a lot to our organization, and we'd like to bring you on for a cup of coffee and $100. $200.
like it.
All right, so that was
$300.
that was not even 10 seconds,
Yeah.
but it created a feeling of uneasiness, awkwardness, and I may have just been thinking. But so there's something about that you don't even have to say anything and just listen, and maybe you elicit a response. The other way is if you're making the offer, you go silent, especially if you get any bit of pause on the other side, you stay silent and you do not break the silence until they talk. That's in the middle. So these pauses are a form of strategy. Also, I'm not a proponent of not being a good communicator, meaning when people email you, people call you, you always get back to them. The best agents always get back to you no matter how important they are. But there is a time when if you receive an offer, and again, this is the problem when you're not meeting face to face. So the most effective way to negotiate is face to face. But in the world we live in, phone calls, emails, text are normal. If you want to make somebody really think about what they just did, go silent. Don't respond right away. I can't tell you how many times that maybe I hadn't had a chance to get back to someone and I fully intended to. It wasn't even 24 hours. They already were negotiating against themselves. So that's where, and the other part about silence is when you don't want to do something or when it's not a deal that you really care about and you go silent because of that, or you show that, you have other options, they start negotiating on the other side harder because they think like they're going to lose you. So there is something to be said about it. I like the way he talks about it in his book. I like the way he uses it, but at the right time. And if it fits your personality too, like you asked about, the introvert, well, that would fit perfectly into somebody who's a good listener. And if you can keep a poker face, if you can not get emotional, if you can not be read well, you can be really good at it. The opposite of that is the flinch. That's another tactic where you go make that offer again, Doug.
Well, I'm going in with a 2 cups of coffee, $200 a week.
No. Okay. Or do it again.
2 cups of coffee, $300 a week, Cliff.
Are you kidding me? Okay, so I just gave you the nonverbal flinch, which you couldn't see, obviously, if you're not watching, which I reacted. And again, it's just a reaction. There was no words. And then I gave you a verbal one, which again, similar to silence, is going to make you rethink what you just said. If you're a good negotiator, one thing you know and one thing we teach is you never negotiate against yourself. And that's a bully tactic. When you can convince somebody that what they just did was not good enough without countering, That's strategic, but it's also somewhat of being a bully. And so that silence and that flinch is really designed to get you to think twice about what you just said. And maybe even before I even have a chance to counter, or you even know to ask me to engage, you've already rethought and maybe say, all right, well, I can do 3 cups of coffee.
I'm happy to do it. Hey, so all right, so let's stay on this topic before we get into our next session. But I'm getting the impression that like everybody it's like going to med school. Like you go to med school, you learn it from a book, but you don't really know until you practice it. And I'd imagine like you go to law school and you learn all the rules and stuff like that, but you don't really know. I'm getting the impression that like there is kind of an uneven playing field, like especially in professional sports. You would assume that everybody knows all this stuff. But is that not the case? Do we think that it's way more sophisticated than it is in reality? Like some people have the skill set, some people don't?
Oh, well, there are plenty of people that go into those positions without any experience whatsoever, meaning not actually have done the negotiation. They may have law school, they may have studied all the right books, they may even have read contracts and understood contracts, but until you're out there on the front line and you're speaking to the other side, if you're agent speaking to the front office or you're from the front office speaking to the agent, you don't know what kind of negotiator you are. And it's amazing where people will find out in real time and sometimes find out they're not that good at it and they need to get better. So yeah, like that's one of the things why I'm trying to teach that class, to try to make it as realistic as possible. In our class, we're not just talking about theory. Yes, there is some theory. I have to show them stuff and tactics, things that work, why they work, but we're not just getting it all from a book. So we're taking real life. We took 2 real life NFL players. We started the semester with Kenneth Walker, the running back from the Seattle Seahawks, and we finished the semester with Kyle Pitts, the tight end from Atlanta. They're both interesting case studies. They're both going to be up for contracts. So it's real life. They can follow along. They can use real statistics as they're happening in real life, real conversations that are happening in the media. I did one thing in class that it wasn't prepared, but it worked out, where the last 3 weeks of class, we divided the class into 2. So 12 people were on the front office side and 13 people were assigned to the agent side, and they each had to take a section. We created 6 sections of a negotiation plan, and every person had to take a section and create a negotiation plan for their side that they were going to then present to me, and then they were going to break up into smaller groups and negotiate them. And it's exciting for them because when it really happens, whether they sign with the team or not or somewhere, they can kind of see where they were, and they're going to understand all the behind the scenes things that I was telling you that no one else, the average person, wouldn't know to think about. And they had to sit and argue through every point. They had to understand the 3 strongest arguments, their biggest weaknesses, see it from the other side. And then they got to hear from industry professionals that could kind of give them tips on this is how we would do it. So that was an interesting part that you just don't get that out of a textbook.
Absolutely not. They're getting all of these bonus things from you because of your experience in your network. It's ridiculous. I want to take the class.
4 cups of coffee and $400 a week.
So who would be the ultimate negotiation warrior? What makes for that person?
It's a great question, and it's something that I've been trying to really continue to evolve. The main trait that I would say of overriding everything is emotional intelligence. If you want to be a great negotiator, a great leader, really a great family person, read as much as you can on emotional intelligence. Travis Bradbury has the books on it, but he also has a whole platform with a website and everything you would need to just really understand a lot about yourself. As I said, the 2 of you, great listeners, ask great questions, being empathetic. I think that you both have that. Being extremely patient. You can't hate it. If your job, take a college administrator, a front office person. If your job is to negotiate the contracts and you hate it or you dredge it, you're going to be impatient and you're going to do bad deals. So you have to be patient. You got to be calm under pressure, super prepared. We heard from every single speaker that used that, but what does that mean? It means having very strong situational awareness. I use surgeons and pilots as the two private sector occupations that risk people's lives every day that they work. They have incredible calmness. If you ever met one or either, you notice that right away. And why are they so calm? And they're so calm because they have strong situational awareness. They prepare for every contingency before every flight and every surgery. And negotiation is no different. Again, I'm not someone that has negotiated the release of a hostage.
Yeah.
But again, that would be someone that deals with life or death situations. But I think the principles are the same as Chris Voss has taught everyone. Being flexible, respectful, focus on your client satisfaction, your stakeholder satisfaction, not your own. What do they want? What is it that they want to get out of it? What's my authority? You got to be able to take risks, but smart risks, calculated risks. That's what preparation will do for you. We're problem solvers. What is the definition of negotiation? Negotiation is a strategic communication process to solve a problem. That's what we are. We are always solving a problem, whether it's a franchise NFL player contract or the release of a hostage. We are solving a problem. And then ultimately, there has to be a willingness to walk away. Some of it might depend on the authority you're giving, but if you don't have a willingness to walk away, you're not going to get a good deal done. So those are some of the key traits that all emanate from emotional intelligence umbrella.
Yeah.
Gosh. All right, let's talk about your podcast because I love it. The content is very good. You have people on there that you want to stop and listen to. Fascinating speakers that you have access to because of your personal Rolodex. An NFL owner, 3 agents, 2 players, including Brandon Marshall, a front office executive, and an NFL executive. So where do you go next with this?
Yeah, I think that what the class has taught us is there's a hunger for that type of education about a topic of interest that comes from people in the industry. That, yeah, I can go in a class and teach students, but that's 25 students at a time. So there's a hunger out there with not only law students and lawyers and business executives, but people that want to find that best version of themselves. So what better way to hear from people that have been doing it for years and let them think, let them reflect on what has made them good at what they've done. What has made them successful? Am I a good agent because I'm a good salesperson? Am I a good agent because I was able to recruit players and had them sign with me? That's not a negotiation skill. That's being a salesperson. So really delving into what are the negotiation qualities that make them great and what can they pass on that help people. So really tapping into that ecosystem, that player contract ecosystem of all the people involved so that they can give their perspective. And to me, that's endless. If this comes into, the Negotiation Warriors podcast that people can listen to conversations, I think that there's something there in terms of how did they get there? How did they become successful? What are their secrets? What are their tactics? What are their trends? What are they willing to talk about? If I have all this experience and I have an education platform that I was able to tap into based on their experience, what about them? And that can that be more engaging, especially if someone like me that has done it knows what they're thinking or knows some of the things that they have done that would be helpful to other people. So I think we can keep building on that network. And I think there is a hunger for people to meet those people behind the scenes that we rarely hear about, we rarely talk about, but at the end of the day, they're very influential in those values you read about, the roster makeup of your favorite team, players transferring from college to college or from NFL team or professional team to another. And we don't even investigate it. We don't even talk about it, but they are very, very influential in all of those things that happen in sports.
So is this a scoop? Are we saying, Cliff, you're launching a podcast? What? Tell us a little bit about this. What's
Look,
happening?
if it does, and it may, I only have the two of you to blame. So you guys encourage me to do something that made me uncomfortable. And I always tell people, don't be afraid to do things that you're uncomfortable. And one of the things that I was very uncomfortable was really talking publicly about the things I do. I think humility is a key core value. And so I had trouble, kind of putting the two together. When I saw the way you guys do the show and made it look easy.
Anybody can do this.
Anybody can do it. You made it look, like I said, great listeners, great asking questions, show empathy, show interest, care. And then that in combination with, I think that this interest level is out there, this hunger for
100%.
Yeah, so I do think that there's something there that I would like to explore, and I appreciate you guys like thrusting me into this environment.
I mean, I think it's so cool. I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours and hours about your everything, your career, how to negotiate, and you gotta get it going, kid.
I appreciate that, and you guys too. Like look, you're advocates for your clients, right? You're giving them advice and guidance on how to make decisions that won't be detrimental to their financial health and their lives. So you guys embody that warrior mindset for your business, for your clients. And so my ask of the two of you is, if this does become a podcast, can this be the first episode?
Well, now I must tell you, I just bought the Negotiation Warrior podcast domain, so now I own that. Be happy to negotiate at a good price. I could get you a good price.
We'll come up with some really creative alternatives when that happens. I got a few trademarks pending, so we'll see.
Oh, okay. All right. Maybe I'm sure you know better attorneys than I do. But a cup of coffee here and there, that's all it takes. That's all.
Well, you guys are
awesome.
No, I think I appreciate the two of you. I love the way you do it. Love to have you. If we do have a podcast, you guys are excellent interviewers. So if I could ever borrow your skills, that would be awesome. But you inspire me. That's the main thing. You inspire me to do it. So we'll keep it going. And I'm a big fan of stopping by. And I'm going to keep listening to stopping by because you have some great stuff. And I know you got busy jobs to do. So I appreciate your time and energy when you do things like this.
And Cliff, as you're getting these very impressive names, if they want to stop by at our pod, we'd be happy to share some guests with you.
100%.
Well, there's no
exciting.
We'll have to have some joint ventures together for sure.
Amazing.
Awesome. Amazing. Cliff. Hey, listen, it's always a treat. We always enjoy spending our time with you. And thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, thank you for having me again. All right, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you.